Yay Networks.
Welcome to the Great Girlfriends podcast, where we discuss life, love, laughter, and everything in between. I'm your host, Sybil Amuti, and I can't wait for you to hear all of the Great Girlfriend magic on today's show. So without further ado, grab something great to drink, grab your pen and your paper, and get ready for this week's episode. Enjoy! Happy Wednesday, Great Girlfriends. And actually, I might do a little rapping on this episode because I'm here with my homie. 1, 2, 3. Her name is Kibi Anderson. A-B. Go, Kibi. Go, Kibi.
I'm gonna do what? What's the Sean Diddy call, like the challenge she has right now?
The shuffle.
Hey,
is there a shuffle right now? I'm so
Jeff for
behind.
his new song.
God. I gotta get up to speed. Great girlfriends. But I'm gonna tell you, today's conversation is going to stir your soul, move your heart, and kick your butt all at the same time. Because every single time I get together with this sister of mine, my great girlfriend, we have, I don't know, I just feel like part of Earth moves a little differently. Like we cause a quake, a bit of a quake. And there's so much disruptive nature in how we challenge each other and love each other and stand beside each other. So I'm so grateful to bring my sister, like from the clutch, my closet sister, the one that I didn't know if I was going to share with y'all, but I'm going to go ahead and share her because the conversations that we're having right now are so important to each one of us. And I love the space that she's moving in as she begins to introduce the power of rest and her personal lessons in learning how to rest. So I'm so excited. I want you to stand to your feet. I want you to honk your horn. I want you to put your arms up on the treadmill and show some love to my great girlfriend, Kibi Anderson.
Go, Gigi. Yay! Oh, I am so honored. You know, I've been secretly trying to get on the GG podcast for as long as I've known this beautiful soul.
Y'all, she was so booked. I'm the president of Red Table Talk right now. I can't do media. I'm over here in B school. She was booked, great girlfriends. Let me not even allow her to do that to me. But you know what, Kibi? I've been waiting because we just okay, great girlfriends. She's going to get into her super amazing bio and why she's one of my favorite humans and what makes her so sparkly and amazing. But when I tell you, there has been thick and thin, and we've been able to move through some thick and some thin together.
Yes,
right?
Girl. Oh my God. I mean, listen, Sybil is the real deal. Yeah. I mean, Sybil, when she talks
the real
about,
deal.
And I'll share a little bit more of my, journey, because as Sybil shared, I am literally on a mission to encourage everyone to embrace the power of the pause. And within that, we talk about rest. We talk about these lies we tell ourselves that we don't have time to rest. And I am the poster child of not knowing how to rest. And I say all that to say, because Sybil has literally been there when I have been at my worst. Like, I'm talking about can't get out of bed, y'all. I'm talking about completely in pain, health crisis. And this girl literally walk into a room and I would break down in tears just because I was so happy to have her presence. So she epitomizes the great girlfriend ethos through and through. And I cannot say how grateful I am for her friendship just personally, but obviously how she is sharing her gift and light with everyone through this brand, through this movement herself. So that's my girl.
Oh, and how great is this, Kibi? So, great girlfriends, we're going to get into who Kibi is, but I just want to tell you how we met, because I thought it was so cool. We met through a great guy friend.
Yes.
A great guy friend that was actually a speaker at the 2016, the Great Girlfriends Conference in New York. And he brought Kibi, and we met. And I think it was months later that we ended up having our first breakfast together.
Well, it was lunch, actually.
It was lunch.
Well, yeah. It was
Okay.
Midtown.
It was a brunch. Yep. Yes, it was right by your job at the time.
It was right by my job.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's when we began to say, okay, wait a minute, there's something here. There's something more to this than, we got to see something through to this. And then I want to fast forward a few years, because I don't think we brunched in between them, but we stayed in contact. And you were moving to LA. And you sent a note about a party, and I was like, wait a minute, we didn't get to fully flush this thing out. I just felt like I was getting cheated. Like, how are you going to?
Yes, I know.
And we didn't get to do the streets together. Yeah, so I came to the party and I was so happy to be there and celebrate you and also meet Dennis, who is your
Yes.
beau, your
Yes.
love, and your life partner. And it's been so great to since then, we've been able to do more in our relationship after your
Oh,
move.
absolutely. I know we were in the same city for I don't know what 2 3 years, and
Yeah.
afterwards, yeah, I mean, yeah, Sybil was my secret weapon in a whole lot of stuff that I was doing in my professional world, which we maybe that's a whole nother podcast, right?
It's a whole other
but
podcast.
but absolutely yes, no, professionally, personally, I mean, just been able to build together, and to me, that just shows the power of what phenomenal women, great girlfriends can do together. It's not just about, like I said, being there in my most vulnerable time of need, but actually being there when I was rocking at my best, doing it, moving it, as she mentioned, the president of Red Table Talk and some other things. So it's just been an exciting journey. And listen, I can't wait to do more. So that's why we're here
I
today.
know. I know. You know what I realized though, Kibi, the reason that New York was the way it was because I was in the middle of pushing and pushing and grinding. If you're living in New York, especially if you were in the Harlem during that time, it was a
Yes.
grind push. I mean, it was just a movement that was happening. So everyone was really accelerating their lives individually and really shuffling to make things happen. And we were doing it in separate spaces, but still also grinding forward. And
Yeah.
now I think it's been great because we get to journey through this next chapter where I feel like, um, life interrupted us all during 2020.
Oh, totally.
Huge interruption, huge pause, huge time for revelation, reflection, and recognition of what's valuable and things that are absolutely not valuable for the newest and next chapters. And so I think during that period, I got to see my life and I got to make new choices. And that's what led us to Los Angeles. You got to
Hmm.
see your life and you got to make new choices, which has led you now to the power of the pause. So I want you to rewind to little girl Kibi and bring us forward to grown, bad to the bone Kibi, who is now teaching us how to take the power of the pause personally.
Little girl Kibi grew up
Yeah.
in a town called Seattle, Washington, which I rep the 206 hard. So shout out to my 206 kids from all over, making moves, making things happen. Young single mom, raised latchkey kid, all the 80s. Just think about all the 80s tropes that you can think
Mhm.
about. Single mom, father, unfortunately, addicted to drugs and alcohol at a very young age. So he wasn't really around in my life. But the beauty of my childhood is that my mom consistently poured into me the importance of community and connected me with community. So raised in one of the most amazing Black churches in Seattle. And yes, there are Black people in Seattle. For those out there, I know back in the day, there was that kind of misnomer, but
Right.
so just raised around Black folks who were owners, who were teachers, who were brilliant thinkers, professors. And so for me,
Mhm.
the sense of excellence was poured into me a lot at a very early age. And so
Mhm.
classic overachiever,
Mhm.
valedictorian of high school, did all of the clubs, class president. I actually ended up having an opportunity to move to Singapore at the age of 16,
Mhm.
which really helped transform my life because I was recruited as a American scholar to attend a
Mhm.
school in Singapore called the United World Colleges. Amazing program, really set up during the Cold War to actually encourage international understanding. So they brought kids from all over the world. For 2 years, I got to study and live with people from Pakistan to India to all over Europe, parts of Africa. And it really energized this global perspective that I had, I think that's carried me throughout my life. It was also the first time that I confronted the power of media. And I tell you that story because that's kind of what drew me to actually wanting to work in the entertainment and television industry. I was meeting people. They didn't see a lot of Black girls that look like me in Singapore. And I actually ended up studying abroad in Japan too during college. And I consistently got these questions around like, well, do you or does somebody in your family play football? Like, is your neighborhood the hood? Because that was the images that were being exported at that time. And so it hit me how powerful media images are. And I realized, no, like I'm from a city called Seattle, and I grew up around really dynamic people. And yes, we all have our personal stories, but it infused in me the stronger desire and passion to elevate diverse stories. That is how I ended up in Hollywood after college. I did go to Harvard undergrad, so Sybil always gets on me because she's like, "You ain't gonna drop that out." So yes, I was a continued to be my overachieving self. Went to Harvard
Listen, honey, we don't
University.
go we don't go to Harvard to act like we were at Walgreens University.
No,
They-
you're
we
right.
don't
You're
do-
right. You are
You should have
right.
a little H right on your neckline
I
right
know,
here, like a
right?
Harvard
Well, can
tat,
I
like a
just
little
say
tat.
a little H there? I know. I just want to shout out my K because this was given to me by Sybil Amuti as
Yes.
an acknowledgement of who I am and my power in my K name. And to your point,
Yes.
yes, we walk in power and celebrate all of the achievements because by the grace of God, I'm still here, and by the grace of the community and the
Yes.
people that love me and my friend circle. But yeah, so that's what caused me to, once I graduated from school, to actually want to come and work in the media and entertainment world. So after a brief
Mhm.
stint doing management consulting, I decided to leave and took on a job working as the assistant to a writer director named Gary Hardwick. He is
Mhm.
behind movies such as Deliver Us from Eva, The Brothers. He actually wrote Bring It On. He was one of the folks who kind of helped
Ah.
turbocharge that. So just for context. And with Gary,
Uh-huh.
I just had the chance to just experiment, explore, and experience some really entrepreneurial things. So that has
Mhm.
always driven this consistent, I think, need for to achieve. And I say that
Mhm.
just because that sense of, hey, my worth is defined by achievement, unfortunately
Yeah.
did get buried in me at a younger age. And I
Mhm.
love my mom. She's one of my favorite people, but I think there was also a dynamic where when I got the A's, I got the praise. But during other times I didn't get as much praise, and it's based on her upbringing. She did what she knew, so I completely understand it, but
Right.
it created a little bit of a
Yeah.
complex because I was like, okay, well, when
Mhm.
I do all this stuff, everybody loves me. And
Mhm.
so this sense of having to consistently achieve is something
Mhm.
that drove me a lot through my early 20s and probably into my early 30s until I honestly just had a breakdown. And we can talk
Mhm.
more about that, but
Mhm. Isn't
professionally,
there something though, Kibi? I want to pause it for a second because,
yeah.
most of us have gone through some level of therapy, or counseling, or, have had some levels of intervention. And all of the ways that we frame our worlds now will not often will point back to how we were trained as children. And when you talk about that, it's so interesting. You were in Seattle and I was in Memphis, individually felt the same thing that you felt, didn't realize that. And it wasn't until I was an adult like you and so many great girlfriends who are listening realized that we've been chasing praise this entire time and didn't even know, because we're like, no, I don't need applause of the people, but internally we have a whole applause track, right? And so
Listen, that's the
if it's not
soundtrack that's
clapping,
playing.
yeah, and if it's not
That's
clapping,
it.
we're like, wait, I need to clap. I got to do something big and special to make sure that I'm always achieving in that, so that I can
Yeah,
feel worthy for me. And
absolutely.
okay, you go
Yeah.
from there, but I
Well, and
really
it's
want to stop there because we're dealing with that, many of us.
no, I mean it's an
Yeah.
epidemic. I mean, because at the end of the day, we
It's an
tired.
epidemic.
Like
Yes,
I
we
was
are
tired. I
tired.
mean, you asked how
Yeah.
I came to the Power of the Podcast show. I was tired. Like I
Yes.
was tired. And like I
Yes.
said, I can talk about more intimately and more just frankly about the health issues that kind of came out of
Mhm.
that consistent need to move and to do. But to your point,
Mhm.
it is due to a learned behavior that
Yep.
doing and doing and doing without pausing is the only way to achieve. And
Right.
that is what I kept telling myself. And I'm sure many of your listeners hopefully can relate to
Mhm.
this.
Mhm.
And whether it's professionally, personally, but this idea of like, I have to do as a mom, I have to do as a
Mhm.
business owner, I have to do as a wife. And nobody is saying that there isn't grace and power in the work. Faith without works is dead. That
Absolutely.
is true.
Yeah.
However, the reality is resting is a commandment. It is one of the
Mhm.
10 commandments. It is sin not
Yeah.
to rest, to take the
Yeah.
Sabbath. And that is the part that I want to really, really impress upon people is that the
Mhm.
rest is just as important, if not more important. And
Mhm. Mhm.
without the rest, the reckoning comes. It
Mhm.
comes. And
Mhm.
that's what I want
Even
to avoid.
the psychology of our country specifically, after 65, you lose value because you're not working and you're not contributing towards this economy. And so you get displaced at that point in life where you're not able to add value. And if you don't have any, or even as a parent, you feel like you've lost value when you're empty nesting and people realize their identity was so tied
Yes.
to the work that they put into their children. Preach the sermon,
Yes.
write the book. Okay, let's
Yes. I
keep
mean,
going
well, and
because
furthermore, can we just talk about the devaluing of the mom's work? I'm sorry, we're talking about
yeah,
investing years into
yeah,
creating confident, healthy, brilliant kids that then go on to create the inventions and everything. So even that, I mean, and Sybil may not have shared this, but I do executive coaching work. And so with a lot of my clients, we're talking about that, women who are coming back into the workforce, releasing that lie, and it is a lie, that what you've been doing in terms of nurturing and building and just birthing, the
Right.
most brilliant people and future mind thinkers is completely bogus. So yes,
Mhm,
absolutely.
mhm. Great girlfriends, I've got a goodie for you. The custom framing company FrameBridge will change your opinion of what true customization really is. They measure and handcraft each frame specifically for your piece, so you can FrameBridge just about anything. That's selfies, game day jerseys, your anniversary dinner menu, or latest artistic masterpiece. Just go to framebridge.com and upload your photo. If you have a physical piece to frame, they'll send you complimentary packaging to safely mail it in. Preview your item in dozens of frame styles. Choose your favorite or get free designer help. The experts at FrameBridge custom frame your item and deliver your finished piece right to your door. And instead of paying hundreds at a framing store, FrameBridge starts at just $39 plus free shipping. Order online or stop by a FrameBridge store near you to work with the designer in person. Now, I personally ordered mine online, and let me tell you, great girlfriends, I could not be more happy for this wall of beautiful photos that I was able to curate thanks to the experts, because I personally have zero success at matting and framing and placing. FrameBridge did all that for me, and I'm so grateful for it. Frame your photos or send someone the perfect gift today at framebridge.com. That's framebridge.com. You didn't even get to NYU yet. We haven't gotten
Right.
to NYU.
I know.
I mean,
I can
you
streak
got a
it.
whole B school degree. We haven't gotten to that part, and the importance of how that progressed you forward. But so I want to get you back into that, because I think it's so important that people see and understand like you said, there is so much value in the accolades. There's also value in you seeing something and wanting to go after it. But then there's also value in knowing when to pull back and take a break and receive the downloads that we need to go out. So back into your
Yeah,
story, please.
definitely. Yeah. Well, and as Sybil indicate, so I spent many years working in the entertainment industry. I was there before the iPhone. I don't want to date myself, but back when I started in the industry, to not shoot something on film was literally blasphemy. So fast forward to,
Wow.
10 plus years. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yes, it was a big deal. But I, as a producer, so I was an independent producer, had my own production company, making content. I've won an Emmy for a documentary project. So just to kind of celebrate the hard work, that went into really developing my career and credentials as a producer, I did begin to notice that the tides were changing. Digital technologies were coming in. I was using some of the early iterations of Final Cut Pro and all of that kind of stuff that has now become standard practice. So I always say I was doing digital related strategy work, content work before there was a word for it. And at the same time, as a producer, I was always thinking about how do we fundraise, how do we capitalize, just to be able to produce the projects that I cared about. So I did a stint working at one of the largest Black-owned bakes, helped them launch their media practice. And from there, just began to understand more and more about, okay, making content is driven by obviously the creative minds, but it's also about having access to money and distribution,
Yeah.
and wanting to actually have influence around those two things, and seeing how all of the old structures of how distribution and financing were taking place. You had Kickstarter starting, you had the Facebooks of the world launching, and therefore you didn't have to have these intermediaries. I decided to go back to business school, and so that's what prompted me to move to New York. I have an MBA from the NYU Stern School of Business. I'm a proud Sternie.
Okay.
And then launched what became kind of the second half of, I would say, my professional career, working in digital content creation, digital strategy. So that's where I started off working at ABC News Digital and helping to kind of revamp some of their internal operations and thinking more broadly about how to integrate the more traditional parts of the business with the digital side of the business, as news consumption was shifting. It was all shifting from kind of
Yeah.
broadcast to being online. From there, I went to Bloomberg Media, where I headed up digital strategy and business development. And from there, really got a chance to hone my chops around building businesses that integrated technology, community, and content. And so I would say that's really been the core thrust of my work over the last probably decade, has been about seeding businesses or going internally and helping launch new initiatives that are around content, community, and commerce. So my last role, which is really where Sybil and I got a chance to work together quite a bit, was working as the president of Red Table Talk Enterprises, which was the kind of the complementary company to the show. And the vision for that was really about how do we take this amazing IP, these conversations that are being had around women, having tough conversations, to the masses, and bring it in multiple experiences, whether that be books and podcasts. Obviously the show was happening. What are some content experiences? And so that's what the vision and what I was brought in to do. So I've always had a passion for how to leverage the power of community.
Yeah.
Obviously, content as a major source of just, as I said, kind of elevating stories and making sure that everybody's perspective is being out. And so that's what continues to drive my work today.
Mhm. You know what's so great about that, Kibi? That was about 20 years of your life. Summarize. Isn't it amazing how I mean, the years are years, right? We're doing these years, but then you're able to do a 5-minute recap on like all of these amazing years. And none of those years come without blood, sweat, and tears. I want
Oh
that to be
no.
very clear. What sounds like an amazing highlight reel there's so many pieces of that journey that come with sacrifice. They come with pain. It comes with feelings of inferiority, imposter syndrome, questions of who
Absolutely.
you are and what your worth is, being the only one in the room, and even wanting to do more and see more, but not being able to be supported to do that, right? And so being under facilitated to perform at your peak level in
Hmm.
positions. Those stressors can impose a lot on our heads and our minds, our bodies, our spirits, our identity. And so many listeners are in a space where they're feeling the heavy imposition of a powerful resume, but the pressure of knowing, like, geez, this stuff is heavy. Do people even see what I'm carrying? Do they understand the pain I'm in? Do they know that on the other side of this, incredible meeting and funding and getting all the things done, I'm hacking my body. I'm getting my body back into right. So
Absolutely.
yeah, because life will, and then your body and your mind, your spirit will reinforce to you the values, and you find yourself sometimes at war, right? It's like, but I'm over here and I'm moving and shaking, and all the things that happen in your body's like, yeah, but we're not aligned. And
Mm-mm.
what is life without alignment?
Yes.
So your
Girl,
movement to alignment was what?
listen, I mean, all of the above is what caught me into the moment where I had to ask myself, why am I so afraid to rest? And that's literally, I mean, and that
Mm.
came because of a health crisis that, actually came
Mhm.
to light during my transition to New York to go to business school. I had been working a long
Wow.
day at the bank, and to your point, carrying all that stuff. I was one of a very few women operating at the highest level within this bank, and we were navigating the tail end of the first financial crisis. So we're trying to keep
Mhm.
this bank alive. We're trying to make sure that we have
Mhm.
money, and a lot of that was on my shoulders. And so accordingly, I was walking to my car one night, long day of work. I get there. I've been feeling a little bit of pain. I finally sit down and I look at my ankle and it's completely swollen. I can't even see the bottom of my over my foot. It was so swollen.
Wow.
I'm like, what the hell? Mind you, I had a deck to finish. So more
Yeah.
than being worried
Yes.
about the health, I'm like, I got to get this deck together for this pitch. Okay, let me go to the
Yeah.
hospital. Doctors give me some antibiotics. I'm like, great, let me go back to work. I finished the deck. Keep moving. 2 weeks later, I'm actually in New York because I was transitioning out, just sitting in my apartment, unpacking. A person had been a painting. I'm all excited. Same thing. I start feeling a pain. This time I look down and I see some inflammation, but now I start seeing a blister form. And I'm like, that's kind of interesting. The pain that I experienced that night, I would never wish on anybody. Like it's almost like whenever you get a blister, for some of you guys who don't know, and ultimately I began to notice that I was getting ulcers. And to get an ulcer is one of the most painful things you'll ever want to imagine. And because it feels like you have a blowtorch, literally like running
Oh
up and
my
down
goodness.
your leg. And then there's phases. So you start with the inflammation, the pain of the
Yeah.
blowtorch comes, then the skin starts to blister, and then you actually start having the skin fall off. And you end up having a really ugly scab that stays. And it takes almost 3 to 6 months for that scab to go away. Now,
Wow.
I went to the doctor after that first time. And again, they're like, something's going on. We're going to give you some antibiotics. But Kibi, perhaps you might want to just slow down a little bit. You've moved, you've changed, perhaps try resting. You think I would
Yeah.
have listened, right? No.
Mhm.
I'm sorry. I just moved to New York. What are you talking about? Rest. I got
Right.
business school, I got classes, I got internships I'm trying to get. I don't have time to rest. Can you just give me some
Yeah.
drugs so I can move?
Mhm.
And do you
Mhm.
know, I went home, took those drugs, and lit my ass to class the next day. Now that cycle kept going. And the reason why I tell you that is because one ulcer eventually became 45. The
Wow.
ability to walk and lit my ass to class ended up becoming I cannot get out of bed. I am so weak. I had fevers, I had chills, the ulcers started going all over my body. And again, you think I would have listened. And it wasn't until I was sitting in a hospital bed after about the 11th hospital visit I had been to over the course of a 5-year period. I'm covered in all kinds of tubes and gowns. I am in so much pain. My husband is worried about me. Friends like you were worried about me, telling me to sit down. And one of my best friends walked in, and I love her to this day. Ida Rodriguez, she's an amazing comedian, but she's gonna tell you like it is. And she said, Kibi, I need to have a conversation with you because here's the deal. She said, you're one of the most brilliant people I've ever met. You can move mountains. You've been to Harvard. You've launched companies. You run things. I don't understand why you won't take all that brilliance and focus it on helping you heal.
Mm.
And when she said it, you know how those people just look at you and your soul
Yeah.
just bears? I mean, she
Mhm.
left and I literally just started bawling. I just started bawling because like I said, I'm looking around and I'm asking myself, Kibi, what is it? You got, it doesn't take ulcers. Why is it, and I finally had to ask myself, why am I so afraid to rest? And as I dug into that question more and more, I began to realize that it was a lot of the stuff that you're talking about. This idea that I was told that only if I do, the idea that I was told society only cares about the output. It was because I was told that what will happen if I rest. And it was unpacking that I was finally able to get to where I am today and kind of understanding I had to recenter my mindset around rest and not see rest as weakness, not see rest as laziness, not see rest as not servicing the people that you love the most, because that's hard. Those are real things. But actually that rest is an act of trust and rest is an act of power. And
Wait a
that
minute.
rest, go
Hold
ahead.
on. Rest is an act of trust.
Absolutely.
Somebody pulling over so they can write that down. Rest is an act of trust. That hits me hard because it hit me earlier this year. I told you about it, where I didn't have a choice, but I had to realize that rest was an act of trust and an act of power. Okay, and keep going, but I needed that. That sits so differently after you've needed to rest and taken the
Well,
rest.
and here's the
Yeah.
truth. There is always a reckoning. There
Yeah.
is always a reckoning. I mean, Harvard University did a study looking at, the percentage of people who work, say, 30 to 40 hours a week and what their likelihood to have health issues is versus those who work
Mhm.
50 plus hours a week. There is a likelihood that you will have a heart attack, 13% more
Mhm.
likely, and a
Mm.
stroke, 33% more likely. And that's just 50
Wow.
hours a week. Raise your hand if you've worked 80 hours a week consistently. Consistently. So imagine even just
Yeah.
33% more. Like there is a
Yeah.
reckoning. And so that is why I
Mm.
am so passionate about this, because I don't want people to have to go through what I went through. I mean, it was
Mm.
nothing I would wish on anybody. And to your point,
Mhm.
it's about shifting this mindset to
Mhm.
understand, like I said, that rest is power, rest is an
Mhm.
active choice, and that there's power in the pause. And within that,
Yeah.
the shift is how do you go from a rest as a something you earn from work, like I'll
Mhm.
rest when I work, as opposed to
Mhm.
no, work is born from rest.
Mhm.
Shift it around. So you have a
Mm.
rest first centered
Mhm.
mindset. And so that's what I'm advocating. You have to shift it, a
I'm
rest
writing that
first
down.
centered mindset. Because no, seriously, rest
Work is
is, I
born
mean,
from rest.
work, put it first. Work is
Yeah.
born from rest. And what I tell a lot of folks, and I'm gonna tell you guys who are listening, sorry, you ladies who are listening, the reason why you're not achieving what you want, the reason why you're not getting the results you want, it's not because you're not working hard enough, it's because you're not resting hard enough.
Yeah.
And I will put
Yeah.
that on you go toe to
Yeah.
toe. It's because you're
It's
not
facts.
resting hard enough. Because when you
Yeah.
really unpack what rest is and what rest isn't, which is another
Mhm.
thing, you
Mhm.
begin to really understand the power of rest. And we have
Mhm.
literally sucked the life because we're listening to all of this societal stuff, all this bull crap, suck the life out
Mhm.
of what rest really gives us.
Great girlfriends, I'm so excited to tell you about this new product that I'm currently wearing right now. Bombas. Bombas' mission is simple: make the most comfortable clothes ever and match every item sold with an equal item donated. So when you buy Bombas, you're also giving to someone in need. Bombas designed their socks, shirts, and underwear to be the clothes you can't wait to put on every day. Everything they make is soft, seamless, tagless, and has a cozy feel. There's a pair of Bombas socks for everything you do. They come in tons of options like comfy performance styles made with sweat wicking yarns, which means your feet stay cool while the rest of you works up a sweat. Bombas no-show socks are designed for comfort while being specifically engineered to never fall down. So let your ankles be free to soak up the sunlight. Bombas t-shirts are made with thoughtful design features like invisible seams, soft fabrics, and the perfect weight so they hang just right. Bombas underwear is so breathable and fits so well, it feels like you're wearing nothing at all in a good way. And this is the deal, they're not lying. I'm literally wearing the underwear right now. And not only is it the softest, most comfortable, cozy, amazing underwear, I feel like I'm wearing nothing. It's also invisible, which is so helpful for a girl who likes to wear biker shorts like me. And did you know that socks, underwear, and t-shirts are the three most requested clothing items at homeless shelters? That's why Bombas donates one for every item that you buy. So far, Bombas customers like you have helped donate over 50 million items of essential clothing. Go to bombas.com/greatgirlfriends and use code greatgirlfriends for 20% off your first purchase. That's bombas.com/greatgirlfriends and use code greatgirlfriends at checkout. Bombas.com/greatgirlfriends, code greatgirlfriends. So there's a few things because some people are probably still stuck on why am I afraid to rest? And you and I have talked about this, and the revelation that we both gained is that you can have, this is the shout out to Tony Robbins, who really slapped me in the face with this about probably 10 years ago now, of values, that we are all driven and guided and governed by our values. And when we have values that we're running from, which is, I don't want to be poor, I don't want to be a failure, I don't want to go back to where I came from, I don't want to be the little one that was bullied on the playground, I don't want to feel that inferiority. When we're running from things, it puts us in this place where these disruptive moments, these moments of interruption, and all those moments were invitations for you, and you declined every
Absolutely.
invitation. Yeah,
Every
you're
single
like, I
one.
declined.
God was
Decline.
like,
Rest was on your calendar, like invitation to rest. Kibi's declining every
decline,
invitation.
decline, decline.
Decline. Because I have this other, because I'm still running from things that I never want to be, I never want to see again. And in order for me to run from those things effectively, I have to run towards what looks like
Yep.
success.
Yep.
And but if you have
Absolutely.
healthy toward values that say rest is powerful, work is born from rest, surrender is powerful, giving myself,
Powerful.
refueling, honoring this vessel is the power. When you have that, it gives you a different frame for why it's like we have to prioritize these things ahead of
Yeah.
the others, like the money, the chase of titles, the money, um, the desire to be in certain rooms, or to even be the thought leader, the desire to have all the medals, to win all the awards, all those things. They're only valuable when you can say that you've honored the vessel that has given those things power, right?
Absolutely. You're highlighting some of the key things that I really talk about when I give this kind of talk in more detail. First of all, you talked about kind of mindset and this idea of like when you think about rest, what's driving it, that fear is all the other stuff that you just said. I don't want to be poor. I don't want to be this. And those were a lot of my fears that I was driving from making choices. So what I had to realize is rest, in order to rest, you have to shift from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. Full stop. So the questions become not what will go wrong if I rest, not, oh my God, what if I am poor when I rest? What if they become, what can go right if I rest?
Yeah,
What can
because I
come out
rested.
of my rest
Yes,
because I rest?
yes.
And it's a
Writing that
shift and it
down.
takes time. It takes time, but
Uh-huh.
that is the muscle we're trying to build. How do we allow our minds to shift from choosing that negative thought pattern? And there's a
Mhm.
whole, teaching and stuff that I can talk about, in terms of how do you move from negative intelligence to activating your positive intelligence. But it's a
Mhm.
choice for you to
Right.
decide, no, I'm not going to say what can go wrong if I rest. I'm going to ask what
Mhm.
can go right if I rest. And so
Mhm.
that's a big
Mhm.
thing. One other thing I often like to talk about is this. need to shift from me care to we care. Me
Mm-hmm.
care to we care. Now listen, everybody always talks about self-care. Self-care, self-care. I need more self-care. I feel like that is the biggest lie, bamboozle, because here's the issue with self-care. Self-care is me care. And when you
Mm-hmm.
think about the reasons why we don't want to rest, it's because we're telling ourselves, if I focus on me, I am taking away from others. I'm not doing the
Mm-hmm.
things that are going to be necessary in order for me to activate my power, get all the things I'm running from to make it not happen. But when you
Mm-hmm.
shift from me care to we care, you actually are centering your rest as a love language to those you care about most. Because if you think about
Mm-hmm.
it, oftentimes the reason why we are so, the reason why we're not willing to allow the we care to come into place is because we think that if we're not there, it's not going to get done. If we're not
Mm-hmm.
there, we're only ones that know how to do it right. Raise your hand. That's control freaks out there. Come on now. I know I'm talking to you because
Yeah.
I am one of them.
Yeah.
How
Uh-huh.
selfish does that sound? When you
Mm-hmm.
think about it,
Mm-hmm.
only I can do it.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
the only one.
egotistical too.
It's
Yeah.
an egotistical so when
Mm-hmm.
you shift to we care, you are actually allowing everyone in your circle, everyone
Mm-hmm.
in your universe, all the people that actually have gifts to give and ideas to bring and all that kind of stuff
Mm-hmm.
to further magnify your power. Because what do we say?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to go one place, go alone. If you want to go far, do it in a group. And so, this idea
Mm-hmm.
of shifting and seeing rest as leaning into this shift from me care to we care can hopefully help unlock a lot of people's resistance to it. Again, it's a mindset shift. How do you do it in a way that allows you to reject the guilt, reject the shame, reject all the things that we
Mm-hmm.
tend to place in ourselves around rest, and do it from a place of power, from a place of
Mm-hmm.
abundance? So, a couple of things that I just want to throw out there to your audience.
That's so good. Me care to we care. Okay. So, okay, great girlfriends. I know she's out here kickboxing with us and she's like, Kibi's like, one, two, one, two. She's like gut punching us on so many things. And even, I get to these places as a parent where I realize that I'm out of sync because I'm overexerting and overextending myself, that my kids can now do certain things. They don't need me to do it. I may have, at one stage, they needed me. They couldn't turn on the stove. My child, Sam, he has his favorite meal he likes to make. He doesn't need me anymore. And so I have to pay attention to when life is creating more freedoms and embrace them, because that leaves room for me to take time for things that matter.
Absolutely.
And so many of us have old conditioning, and in one stage of your life, there may have been a necessity to play a certain role, or you even took on roles that you thought you needed to play that others could have filled in group thinking, in we care. And I feel like
Yes.
this is so great to disrupt the idea that, you know, I will say this, because so many women are listening going, I'm not controlling. Okay, maybe you're not controlling in your mind. However, if you feel you have to lord over things for them to be done most effectively, it's quite possibly it's
Just
quite
a little
possible
bit. Just a little bit.
control there. And because
Yeah.
people will hear controlling and go, but I'm not this. You don't have to throw
Yeah.
your hand. If you feel like you have to be the Lord or the author, and you have to make sure that you ensure things are done so that they're done perfectly, then there are elements of control that we
Well,
have to
yeah.
check in on,
Well,
right?
and a simple question is to ask yourself, when was the last time that you rested? You know what I mean? Because here's the deal:
Mm,
if the idea of leaving and completely unplugging, and I know I want to be mindful of time because there is this idea of what rest is and what rest isn't. Because I have a
yeah.
whole blow up on around there. But if the idea of like taking some time out to do what rest is, and I believe that rest is doing anything that gives you joy. That is my
Hmm.
definition of rest, because I think we have these ideas of like rest is going on vacation, rest is
Yeah.
going to sleep. And how many times have you gone on a vacation, went to bed, and woke up and you still tired as hell?
And
Like, so real talk.
yeah.
So read what rest is and what rest is not. I define
Yeah.
and I encourage people, rest is doing anything that gives you joy. And anything that gives you joy it has no
Mhm.
tangible result. So
Yeah.
so skating can be resting, hanging out with your
Yeah.
friends, watching TV. So defining that. But my point is, if the idea of doing any of those things that I just talked about, giving you joy, in lieu
Yeah.
of doing something that you feel you have to show up for, gives you anxiety, that is a sign that there
That's
is a
the
little bit of
sign.
control in you. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
And awareness is
So
half the
good.
battle. Just a
Hmm.
sign.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
typically those of us, and like I said, I'm self-proclaimed, who are afraid of
Hmm.
letting go, like afraid of not sending that last email, afraid. It's because there's a
Hmm.
sense of control that we believe only we can do it. When
Mhm.
I say
Mhm.
let the we,
Mm.
I'm talking about God. God is in the miracle
Mhm.
business. How do you create
Mhm.
space, the time for allowing those things to happen, your name to be spoken in rooms that you didn't even imagine? And that's what
Mhm.
solves your problem. You know, you
Mhm.
go on a go on a skating journey, or go on a boat for an hour, and you come back and you have all these new ideas about how to solve that problem, how to do that pitch. That is what rest gives you. And so to
Yeah.
deny that because you're focused on controlling is really, like I said, the reason why you're not achieving, the reason why you're not getting the results you want. Because the more you center that and create discipline around it, turn it into a lifestyle. Listen, we didn't even get to the when I took my pause, what happened? The
Yeah, we got it.
amazingness that came out of my life. We didn't even get
Yeah.
to it. I mean, because that's why I'm an advocate. I made more money the year after my pause
Yeah.
working a tenth of the time than I had ever made in my life. I launched new businesses. I
Mhm.
healed. I
Yeah.
healed. I
Yeah.
healed.
Yeah.
And when
Oh
I
my
tell
gosh.
you, just I mean, you know,
Yeah.
45 also. I mean, like this was I didn't get in the water for 2 years. And I'm an ocean
Mm.
baby. I could not take a
Mhm.
bath for 2 years. The first time I got
Mhm.
into the ocean, girl,
Mhm. I know you just cried
because
and you just
I cried,
Woo!
you know, and all because
Yeah.
I was denying myself that because I didn't want to rest. Like, what kind of craziness is that? And again, you don't have to have 10 ulcers. You don't have to have been in the hospital multiple times. Like, you don't have to be on the You just have to acknowledge the fear, because I don't want people to get to where I got.
I know. I want to ask you this because as you were talking, and you start talking about the anxiety that you feel, I started to think about, and I know we got to go shortly. I know, but I just started to think about great girlfriends who are in friend circles where they are working to show up because they want to be a part of a certain circle, or they're trying hard to. There are people who social climb, right? And they feel like they got to always be on and they always got to present strong and present and they always have to have projects popping or they always got to have a full face of makeup, or they always got to be dressed to the nine to show up in circles. And there's that pressure and their identity is being lost because they don't have a sacred space where they can rest. So I feel like your friend circles should be a place out, we talked about this, where you can rest and you can also rise in that same
Absolutely.
space, right? You're able to do both. But there can also be that in personal circles or even around family. And I want to tap on that just really quickly because we realize that there are people in our life that can impose certain pressures and they may have played that position for a long time. I'm the youngest of a lot of siblings. So oftentimes my sisters would tell me what to do and I was running to do it until I got to be an adult. And I was like, wait a minute, you are not my boss. You cannot tell me to, and I do not have to do everything y'all say. And it took a lot of me to really get there, right? And I also have to exercise that muscle in other circles because my adaptation from childhood taught me to listen to the elders, the seniors. They got first priority over everything. I had to revisit that and own my power. So in friend circles, Kibi, where there is that pressure, what would you say to the great girlfriend who, we have found that space. We have found
Yes.
that space and it's
Yes.
protected. And ain't nobody finna tap dance on my friend circles like that. I'll be like, no, 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 wrong group. But what would you say to the great girlfriend who is trying to figure that out, trying to like
Hmm.
just wants an authentic space to rest, like we said, rest and rise, like one space that she can where she doesn't have to feel that anxiety. And
Yeah,
what would you tell her?
definitely.
Yeah. What would you say
Well,
to her?
I mean, here's the thing. I
Have
think
you ever been
one,
there?
oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I've
And
been
I'll
there
talk about my
before.
own personal journey. I mean, in order to rise, you do have to shed. You know what I mean? In order to
Yeah.
move into a new
Yeah.
space. So it will require, and this is another thing that I tell people, rest needs to be a lifestyle and it needs to be a
Yeah.
discipline. And in order to
Mhm.
operate from a discipline perspective, you have to set boundaries. And I say
Mhm.
this all the time: no is a complete sentence.
Absolutely.
No is a complete sentence. No is a complete
Yeah.
sentence, because we have to learn that. Because here's the thing: you can create the world that you want. And as I
Yeah.
said, rest, oftentimes people think you can only do it in a solitary way, but you can rest in community. And so I find if
Mhm.
you can find a community that values rest, and again, you can define what rest is for you, it's about what gives you
Yeah.
joy. Find a community of people that do the things that give you joy. Because when you're
Yep.
doing it, you feel like you get the feeling of rest. You get the
Yeah.
feeling of being poured into. You get the feeling. And so it's about finding that harmony. I always talk about
Mhm.
balance is not the goal. I think that's another thing we've been lied about. Balance is not the goal, because balance
Yeah.
inherently,
Yeah.
there's a sense of lack. In order to get something, you have to
Mhm.
get away. Think of a seesaw.
Mhm.
Harmony, two things can exist at the same time. You have chords in harmony that are progressing at the
Yeah.
same time, making a beautiful melody. That's why I love
Yeah.
harmony. You can rest and you can work in harmony. And that allows you to find those communities where you pour into them, girlfriend, sister
Mhm.
circles, where you get that pouring in, you get that rest, you get to just be still and be
Mhm.
safe. And then maybe you have other circles where you have to go in, but you've been poured into. So you have the energy, you have the ideas, you
Mhm.
have the strategies because your girlfriends are giving them to you, or just being in a space where you
Mhm.
feel safe. And like I said,
Mhm.
that's what the great girlfriends have to choose. And that's why I'm saying
Yeah.
own the power of the pause. There is
Yeah.
power in
Yeah.
it. You can choose it. You have to create space for it. And again, this is where the discipline comes in, and you build it up over time. But choose the circles that are restful. And if you think
Mm.
about what rest is about, it gives you joy. It is people
I
who are
love that.
activating rest in their lives.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, every month, my husband and I, we do a 24-hour DB. We go check ourselves into a staycation, a hotel, cut off all.
Mhm.
That is disciplined rest. I have other couples who want to
Mhm.
start doing it. So we're going to,
Mhm.
every quarter, I go and take like a 4 days, just that is what, and I go on a boat, because for
Mhm.
sailing for me is rest. Being near the ocean is being restful,
Mhm.
so I've defined the things that give me joy. You got to take
Choosing the
advantage of that
circles
and
that are
own that.
restful. That's so good, Kibi, because um okay, great girl, because I promise this is ending soon. But clearly we can talk all day, and we're probably gonna have to have a part. We are gonna have to have a part two of this. But choosing the circles that are restful, and I hope, great girlfriends, you found that our community is such a sacred space where you can have that rest and rise kind of mindset, because so many people have labored for relationships and have found themselves trying to be something, to show up in spaces so that they could be validated by a circle. And when
Hmm.
you go to those circles where you find joy, if you're into culinary arts and you get into a culinary arts community, and yeah, you get to be, or you're a geek and you love, Marvel movies, and you're into whatever, tech, travel, whatever those things, instead of going to circles where it looks like people are doing and vibing, and you get in there and you feel mismatched. It's very
Yes.
important. And then you're not resting.
You're
I feel
not.
so
That's
validated
work.
because all my great girlfriends, all of you all, are so different and amazing in every way. And it's just one circle of love. And I feel like this plug and play nature to the circles where I can send you with my sister and you can send me with your sister, and we can all vibe and have this beautiful romantic love together. That's not perfect, can sometimes be challenging, but it can still be restful because
Absolutely.
we feel seen and validated by the circle we're in. Okay,
Absolutely.
Kibi.
So beautifully said.
Kibi, okay. I'm so excited. I feel so like you just kind of gave me an IV, like a hydration. You just literally have lit me up with this, because this is so important. Great girlfriends, I hope you see. And I've been taking notes, by the way, as I as
Yes.
we've
No,
been
I hear.
talking. I'm over
Well,
here jotting.
can I give one
Yes,
exercise just for
tell it.
folks to do?
Of
Okay, so
course.
here's very simple, and this is something for a lot of people that can be a little tough. I want you to spend a little bit of time, close your eyes, and start really reminiscing on things that give you joy. Because this wasn't
Mm,
modeled for us by our parents, and oftentimes, really
mhm.
thinking about what gives us joy can be an exercise in itself. And I encourage you to start with things that you did when you were younger, that you
Yeah,
just did for the free of it. Like I said, so for me, it was bike riding. I love going to the
yeah.
ocean. So spend some time, just really, and then get a list of those things that, wow, like when I was a kid, there was no care in the world, and
Mhm,
just visualize it and imagine it. That's a first step,
mhm,
because once you at least kind of reclaim and connect to that, then you can kind of
mhm.
start doing some of the more advanced things around creating the muscle and discipline around some of the other things. But just start with that. Write it
Okay.
down. Maybe pop it in the Facebook groups that will have people. Maybe put that as a
Yeah,
prompt. What gives you joy? Just
yeah.
and like I said, really, really think about it, because rest, as I said, is doing anything that gives you joy.
Mhm. All right, Kibi, we're gonna have to do a part two on this. Where can our great girlfriends connect, keep up, celebrate, shout you out? DM you? Where can they
Yes.
keep up with you?
Well, you see, I mean, Kibi Anderson is my IG handle. KibiAnderson.com is my website. You can please go there, hear about everything I'm doing. Like I said, I do executive coaching. I do speaking on this topic, in addition to some of the other sort of content related stuff that I'm still doing. But yeah, follow me. I'm Kibi Anderson everywhere. So just do a search and I'll pop up. Please DM me if you're interested in learning more. I would love to share a little bit more about that and see if there's anything that I can do to support. Yeah, because like I said, I'm on a mission. This is my own personal story has just unlocked this, and I cannot
Yeah.
tell this to more and more people because I want a movement of people who are claiming there is power in the pause. There is
Yeah.
power in the pause. There is power in the pause. Say it to yourself. There is power
There's power in
in
the
the
pause.
pause.
Yeah, I love that so much. Kibi, thank you so much for being with us today. I love you deep, deep, deep and
I love
eternally.
you
And I'm
too.
so happy to be your great girlfriend and your sister and
Me
your favorite human.
too.
Okay, that's all I have to
Thank
say.
you. I love it. I love it. I love it.
All right, great girlfriends. Did you enjoy this week's episode of the podcast? If so, would you please give us your amazing review on iTunes? Every single review helps another great girlfriend get plugged into the podcast and the community. Speaking of community, make sure you join our Facebook group at The Great Girlfriends, follow us on Instagram at The Great Girlfriends, and on Twitter at @the_great GFS. I'm Sybil Amuti, and I'm out. Peace.